that the African democracy, the Nigerian democracy, should be a kind of democracy that should be fitted in with, structures and factors that will make it work, knowing very well that there is a difference between the American environment and the Nigerian environment, between the British environment and the Nigerian environment, and making us to understand and in fact know that what works in USA cannot necessarily work in Nigeria. And what works in Britain cannot necessarily work in USA. And ideally, each of the democracies we have in the world is traced to Greece. We should remember the time of the ancient city-states of Athens and how they emanated. And then for the Britons, they adapted it to fit their society. The Americans adapted it to fit their society. And when you look at Nigeria, we'll talk about presidential democracy. And we begin to ask ourselves, is it actually in the mode of the American democracy in name and in practice? If we look at it from the prism of name, we say yes. But then from the prism of practice, I think it's a capital no. So I think realistically, we can say that we have democracy only to the extent of what we have in Nigeria that leaves a lot of rooms, to be improved upon.
From what you said about Babangida and his own idea of democracy,
yes.
Are you saying that is exactly what we are practicing now? Okay, because was another unique one. I think, where was I then? We were asking, was I in secondary school? We were asking, how come he calls himself a president and he's in a khaki? That is, people that are supposed to be presidents are usually in civil dresses and a whole lot of things. But I think it's the system that we're looking at. That's this, what do you call it? Comedy that is trending now, where a teacher, I think it's the copper teacher, was trying to teach the students, asking them to define democracy. Somebody said, according to Abraham Lincoln, is the government of the people, by the people, for the people. They said, no, this is where we are. So if we want to define democracy, we should define it from the point
the
of
Nigerian context.
Nigerian context.
Yes.
And the guy went ahead to say that is the, government of, how did he even say it? It's selection and not the rest of things. It was a very funny one. But then he was able to pass the message. Okay, so what do we do, Barrister Ogugua?
Yes.
To be able to model our own democracy, to serve a purpose for us. If you say you're not going to practice that come from the Greeks and then by extension America, but you want to do a one that is original to you, so how do we do it at least to look like what we copied?
Thank you very much. I think I would go back to what you said about what the teacher asked and what the pupil, explained, and then the requirement to define it in the Nigerian context. Obviously, there was this American social critic, one Alexander Pope. You may have read, him. When asked to provide an opinion on what democracy is, he said, I have to paraphrase it, that it is a madness of the majority for the welfare, for the betterment of the few. Is it? And if you ask me, I will say that defines our predicament in Nigeria, where everybody strives thinking that something good is going to come out from a particular system. And at the end of the day, people are ravished and raped beyond their wills. And at the end of the day, you find out that those who eventually find themselves there, going there for personal aggrandizements and selfish and regional interests. Is it? And then, like you equally asked, if we have democracy in Nigeria, by whatever, form it is, or if we do not have, even as it is in Nigeria, what else can we do to make sure that at least we have something, to work with? And then I would want to say that if we want something better, we should go back to restructure the country. Yes, because I remember equally alluded to 1960s, the 60s. Perhaps when we were talking about that, your mind may have gone to the pre-independence period down to independence proper, what we have within the first 6 years of Nigeria independence and what have you. And so to that extent, I would say that looking at what we have presently, Nigeria has been polarized along tribal and religious divides. And if we want to remove these two monsters from our body politic, the very first we can do is to restructure. Go back to either the 1963 position, when Nigeria had 4 regional structures. If my brain is still working, I remember there was the South.
4 or 3? Okay.
It was 4, yes. The West.
The Midwest.
Yes, the Midwest made it 4. You're right. Then the East and the North. Is it someone's out there may not be completely at home and happy with what I've just said, but then we can as well ask ourselves, if we do not want it to be as it was between 1963 and 1966, can we perhaps tweak it here and there? Do you understand? To accommodate the interest of maybe a few elements who may feel that maybe that 1963, 1966 structure didn't actually address their own, challenges.
I think that was why they now brought it down to 6 regions.
Yes, the
so
6.
We can still operate on the 6 regions.
Remember that the 6 regional structure is not constitutional. These are mere administrative, creations that were done by Abacha. Do you understand? And you talk about these south-south, north-central, that used to be what we know as a middle belt. Do you understand? Okay. But then Nigeria as it is has not been structured constitutionally to give effect to that particular geographical entities that are now called the 6 geographical zones. Do you understand? Those things were created merely for political calculations. Is it? And so, but then, if we equally want to get it right, it was like what I said going back to 1963.
Okay.
We can equally say, okay, if these 6 geographical zones, are working, Southwest taking care of our Yoruba brothers, Southeast taking care of, I think there is a bit of imbalance. Do you understand? Because if you look at what constitutes the Igbo man, you find out that our brothers, span beyond, the western part of the River Niger. And then without going into the controversy of what Enwike calls himself in Rivers State and what, Amaechi calls himself down there, we equally know that these are equally Igbos. Do you understand? So, assuming we want to tell ourselves the truth, we can use the same geographical zones to define whom the Igbos are, to take care of them and their yearnings. And then for the North Central, that used to be the Middle Belt as we know it, we also define it. I am not equally, forgetting the fact that there are equally Igbo communities even in the present-day Benue State. Do you understand? And they're part of Kogi State. Assuming we actually want to get things properly done, we go back to these things, address them structurally, allow each of the structures to have their own elections, to have their leaders put in place, and allow them to develop at their own pace. Do you understand? And I think it was something very close to what we had in the 60s. Remember that even before the war, the Southeast was the fastest growing economy in the black world. And even to say it was in the black world was an understatement, because I remember we equally read that our growth, development growth rate was above that of the likes of Brazil of today, the likes of China of today, and the likes of India. Yes, Singapore, you don't talk about them because they were largely non-existent then. You don't talk about these Asian tigers who were better than them. Do you understand?
Mm-hmm.
And then our brother Awolowo of blessed memory there was equally doing wonders in the west. Ahmadu Bello was doing great in the north. So who says we cannot bring it back if you want things to work out? Then, if it becomes that way, and we see that things are working out at, if we call it now, the zonal level, the regional levels, the level of pressure that can now be seen at the center will reduce. Do you understand? And we have something very close to what we had in the 60s again, where regardless of how bad the election can be, we can beat our chest and say, come, we stand a chance of having, if not the first 11, the second 11. And not presently we have people who cannot make what you call an amateur league coming to play professional league in Abuja.
In politics.
So that is the problem, is it? And then beyond restructuring, we equally talk about independent institutions. You see, Lady Aija, I am not a fan of the former president of USA, Barack Obama. But there was something he said in Ghana when he visited Ghana, I think 1998 or 2008 or thereabouts, when he said that Africans should not advocate for strong individuals, but strong institutions. Do you understand?
Yes.
If we have strong institutions where INEC will be INEC, and not just independent in name. Do you understand? Where the police force will be police, and not just independent in name. Where the judiciary will be the judiciary, with real independence attached to what happens at the courts. And perhaps where members of the National Assembly, be it a senator, a member of the House of Representatives, equally does his business without any fear or favor. Take, for instance, if an INEC chairman is appointed and teleguided on what to do, automatically, perhaps as a result of how the person is appointed, somebody's black file is already, with the security, agencies. And somebody tells you, do it this way. If you don't do it that way, look at what happens. Do you understand? So if INEC is independent, INEC will conduct elections without any interest.
Election independently.
Do you understand? And then that could probably take us to what we had in, people talk about June 12, 1993. And most times we do not look at, the circumstances under which our brother, Professor Humphrey Nwosu, did what he did in 1993. Is it? To some extent, there was a bit of, independence that was, given to Professor Nwosu's neck then. I think the only area Babangida got it wrong was in trying to, please some people who wanted to, get some faces, to take over from that particular government. We knew that between 1991 and 1992, each of those two political parties then, I remember Social Democratic Party, SDP, and the National Republican Convention, NRC, had their individual primaries that produced a number of candidates that were not in the good books of the powers that be then. And as a result of it, the primaries were repeatedly cancelled. Not until Abiola was able to emerge for PDP and Bashir Tofa was able to emerge for NRC. But at the end of the day, even when we had what was adjudged then as the freest and fairest of elections in Nigeria, they didn't allow the voice of the masses, to dictate.
Prevail.
Yes. And so, let INEC be independent and let the police be free, de-tribalized. Do you understand? If somebody is fingered to have been involved in any form of electoral malpractice, let that person not only just be arrested, let that person be prosecuted. Do you understand? And if we are talking about our courts, automatically a judge, a justice wouldn't be coming into a particular case having anything to do with whom am I going to impress and whom am I not going to, impress. Quite all right. There was one of our, senior colleagues of blessed memories, Wandel Hope Jr., who say that ideally that what the law is what the courts profess the law to be. In other words, the law goes beyond what you have in the Constitution. The law goes beyond what you have in the statute books, but about what a particular judge says is the interpretation of that particular section of the law. And what we're saying is that a judge should feel free. A judge should not go into his desk thinking about, is my salary going to be paid?
Or who to please. Do
you understand? Yes. And perhaps if I do this, are these EFCC dogs going to be set against me? Do you understand? Except for, when we have, judicial activists, judges who can always stand and tell themselves, look, at the end of the day, I don't care whose ox is gorged. State it the way it is, and the heavens will not fall. So until we have an independent judiciary, all what we are talking about is a ruse.
Sustaining Nigerian democracy.
Yes. And down there, we talk about having an organized opposition system. I would want to say this, Lady IJ. I was looking at this obedient movement. I'm sorry I have to, go there. You see, for the very first time in Nigeria, we were able to, see Nigerians devoid of ethnic, callings coming together in support of a particular candidate. Is it? But then sometimes I tell my friends and I tell myself that, yes, I tell myself and I tell my friends that, assuming the challenge at the court doesn't go in Obi's way, will it be the end of it? The answer will be no. And I was asking myself, is there any other way Obi and his movement, do you get the point, can improve on even the existing government? And I told myself the answer is yes. And that comes down to what I'm talking about now, organized opposition. In political science, when we talk about shadow government, false government, we are talking about an organized opposition where the opposition leader has, for each of the ministries of government, his own officials. Do you get the point? In other words, if PDP or Labour Party is the official opposition party, or if even APC becomes the official opposition party, depending on the outcome of the legal challenge in Abuja. Do you understand? The next party that comes second automatically becomes the official opposition party. She should not just go and sit down. What that party should do in an organized political system is to appoint her own ministers. So where the president appoints minister for petroleum, the opposition government appoints a minister of petroleum. Where the president appoints an inspector general of police, the opposition government appoints an inspector general of police in shadow form, not coming to rub shoulders with the existing government, but to criticize. Do you get the point? Whatever thing the president doesn't do well, or wherever the president has just changed the people, the leader of the opposition party tells the masses.
Like it's done elsewhere.
Thank you very much. Yes. If the chief of army staff is not doing well, and there are facts to buttress the point that the chief of army staff is not doing well, the chief of army staff for the opposition party, who doesn't have executive powers, but who knows it and how it is done, we tell Nigerians, this is not true. This is not true. That way, those who are officially in government will sit up. That way, it helps the electorate to know whom to go for in the next election. Do you understand?
Yeah.
But we have, a system where what we have seen over the last, years, I think since 1999, is an amalgamation of strange political bedfellows. People who are united only in their selfish monetary interest. So much that you don't even see any difference between PDP and the APC. Somebody is in PDP today, tomorrow he decamps. He's into APC.
No ideology.
Is it before he
It's
spreads
just
acromism,
the
he's
stomach
into another
infrastructure.
political party. So we go back to the basics.
Okay, going back to the basics now, we are looking at how we can sustain democracy in Nigeria.
Yeah.
We have practically looked at the role of the executive, the role of the judiciary. Let's get to the legislature. In civilized crime, like you tried to point out, when a president is not doing well or heads of institutions are not doing well, they are summoned by the legislatures to come and explain why we shouldn't have adequate security on ground, or why people should die in their 50s, in their 100s, in a nation where you have the military and all the things they needed to work with. Okay, but this place, I don't understand the kind of legislations that we have. So what is their role to ensure that we sustain democracy in Nigeria? Barrister.
I think that still goes down to how each of the members of the legislature, whether at the federal level or at the state, emerged. Do you understand? And then after they emerged, how did their principal officers also emerge? Do you understand?
What's going on in the House now?
We discussed this matter, I think, sometime last year or last 2 years while you were at your Onitsha office.
I know.
When the former leader, Buhari, was summoned by the Senate, and he refused to attend.
I remember I asked you,
yes,
if he doesn't,
yes,
if he fails to attend, what will happen to him?
Ordinarily, under a normal atmosphere, he should have been reprimanded. There are laid down procedures, under which the legislature supervises the executive. Do you understand? We call it checks and balances. So the lawmakers, ordinarily, if they had had their nerves, do you understand, ought to have sanctioned the president then. Do you understand? But remember that we had an administration that almost also handpicked who were the principal officers. Is it? And in an environment where, as it is always, whoever pays the piper dictates the tune. Do you understand? You cannot, handpick someone to apparently be the Senate president and expect the Senate president
to work against the executive.
Yes, to rebook. So it wouldn't just happen. Is it? So away from that, I equally know that someone may decide to be an activist, even when he is appointed. Do you understand? But then it's
like we saw in the 8th Assembly.
Thank you very
National
much.
Assembly.
Thank you very much. But then it takes, an individual with independent mindset to go that long. Do you understand? So it wouldn't now matter if even the current president as it is now, Tinubu, probably influenced who emerged as the Senate president as it is, or perhaps influenced who emerged as the Speaker of the House. It will be more important if whoever emerged as the Senate president understands that he owes allegiance to the Nigerian public.
First.
So much that if the president is found to have in any way derailed, he will stand up for Nigerians. His fellow senators will stand up for Nigerians. The junior brother there, the Speaker of the House.
One minister. Yeah, hello? Please, you are free to make your calls, but when you do, turn down the volume on your TV set so that we'll be able to talk to you one-on-one, okay? Thank you very much. Go on, Barrister.
So the Speaker of the House of Representatives equally does the same. Do you understand? But where we have a bunch of lily-livered fellows.
Yeah, hello. You've not adhered to my instructions, so there's no way we can talk with you. Please, like we have always said, there's always rules to the games. If you want to call in, turn off the volume on your TV set and then talk to us, please. Otherwise, it becomes a distraction.
So what we're talking about is that we should have core patriots, nationalists. Do you understand? People who must love Nigeria. People who must see that things are done the right way in Nigeria. people who must go beyond personal and regional.
1 minute. Yeah, hello?
Hello.
Good morning.
Hello. Good morning.
Welcome. What's your name?
Huh?
What is your name?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Uche from Oka.
Okay, Uche from Oka. Go ahead.
Yes, what people are talking is enough, but the problem is that the president cannot detect those who are going to be separate or out of rest. The president cannot detect them.
The president cannot dictate who becomes the speaker or the Senate president. Is that what you're saying? Are you there? Okay, I'm sorry about that. Okay, remember, we are looking at sustaining Nigeria's democracy.
Yes.
What do? We have looked at our background, what worked for us in the past, what is going on now, and what we must do to ensure that we sustain democracy in Nigeria. What is even democracy? Does it have different definition in the whole world? All this we have looked at, as I still have Barrister Ogugua as my guest in the house. And now we are looking for a way out. What do we do to ensure that we sustain this democracy, whether it wants to be sustained or not?
There should be rule of law. Mm-hmm. Is it? There should be civil liberties. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. If you have any system where people are arrested as a result of holding a, contrary opinion, perhaps an opinion that somebody somewhere, feels mm-hmm. is not in sync with what he wants as a leader at any level, then that is not democracy. So if you want to sustain it, we have to ensure that I should feel free to constructively criticize the government of the day without any fear that if I get down to my house this afternoon, if I get down to my office this morning, yes, that perhaps DSS or whichever name code will come, to pick me up. Do you understand? And then the social agencies should be reinvigorated. Is it the mass media, the structure, the organizations and the ministries? I remember we have this national orientation agency. These things should not be existing in name. They should go out to sensitize people, not only during elections, but even before elections. Let people know what their rights are. You see, I have the opinion that you cannot get a good government, whether democracy or not, without having good citizenry.
That's exactly, that is going to form my last question. What is the role of the citizenry to ensure that we have this
now, if as a citizen,
democracy?
Yes, thank you very much. If I understand that as a citizen I am, that I shouldn't be looking at maybe a cup of rice I am going to get, or perhaps 1,000 naira I am going to get to vote for someone, then we have started. Do you understand? And if at the office levels, members of the Independent National Electoral Commission of Nigeria equally come to terms with the fact that, look, regardless of how large the Ghana must go is, mm-hmm. do you understand? Reject it for the betterment of this country. Hey, Chief, thank you very much, but go with it. Do you get the point?
I think we saw something like that during the last election.
Assuming before the election, even as we are at this particular stage, people begin to understand the implications of money politics, even before the next elections come. In the long run, we get to the destination that we are looking for. But when you have the present system where if I don't have billions in my bank account, and if I don't have the will to spend it, throw them around, I cannot win ordinary councillorship election, then the problem continues. Is it for as long as the citizens are bloody wicked, resorting to this assumption that welun kej for. Do you understand? Why resigning one's fate to the fact that If it's a cup of rice, this a cup of rice is going to last for the next 4 years. If it is 1,000 naira, this 1,000 naira is going to last for the next 4 years. Then we are digging our individual graves.
I know, though that in the last election, we noticed that some people have come to the realization that
Yes.
you can do without these things and still get what you want.
Thank you,
Perhaps
yes.
that's formed the opinion of the guys that came together and called themselves obedience. Okay, even sustaining whatever they are doing with their own money instead of looking for what to gain. But don't you think what we are facing when it comes to this kind of situation is the extreme poverty, you know, which the government has pressed us into, that they push you to the wall that if you don't collect this thing, you are on your own, because you can't make money on your own, because they've made every policy to be against the masses. Okay, so that whatever you do, you can't make it on your own until you get it from us. Is it not deliberate?
I think I had this conversation with one of my senior colleagues in court the other time. We were looking at weaponization of poverty. That was what I called it.
And that's what it is.
Do you understand? You know, deliberate measures at making people as weak as possible, so much that a cup of Gary becomes so
Gold
fundamental
in your
that
hands.
one cannot do without saying, give me for what you want.
You lose
Do
your
you understand?
dignity.
But then the question there is, should we continue in that particular direction? Is it? I usually give people reference to this Clint Eastwood's movie, The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, where I think it was a Tuko or thereabouts who was telling the bad, who was at the verge of killing somebody.
If you want to shoot.
Yes, if you want to shoot. Do you understand? And what I want to draw from there is this. If I must die today, don't defy it for me. Kill me and let me go. So if hunger is going to kill me, perhaps in the next 4 years, it is better that that particular hunger kills me now.
But
So-
let me retain my integrity.
Yes. So even as citizens, national orientation agencies, state orientation agencies should be able, churches should be able, do you understand, to put it into the minds of the people that you can do without this cup of rice today, you can do without this 1,000 naira today, you are not going to die. But even if you're going to die, die for your children.
Die honorably.
Do you understand? For the
Yes.
children.
Okay. For want of time, let's we have practically looked at what we need to do to make sure that we sustain our democracy. Let's look at the recent issues in our hands, like the effect of the oil subsidy removal, the what do you call it? The hike in
The so-called tariff.
the tariff that is
Electricity.
coming, and the capitalization or the valuation of money and then the capitalization of the bank or whatever, you know. So let's look at how it's going to affect us generally, and then whether it will also help us sustain the democracy that we have, if we have any.
I think those policies in the short run have not made our civil rule attractive. Is it? I wouldn't want to describe what we have. I've said it before now as democracy, because democracy ordinarily should be a government that is built on legitimacy, acceptance of the people. They understand. And normally when the people accept a government, they will be happy with whatever that particular government is doing. They understand. And so the question now is, are Nigerians happier? If you ask me, I will say that the answer is no.
Okay.
We have placed the cart before the horse. I was thinking that if we had had good thinkers in Abuja there, what this administration would have done first of all was to unbundle the process of importation of petroleum products. That is, if he wouldn't guarantee that the refineries we have in Nigeria are working. They understand. Let every importer feel free to import. Let it not be restricted to NNPC.
Okay.
They understand. And then it equally takes me again to my own personal views that there has never been subsidy. what
Let's
we'll be
not go
having,
there
what we'll be
today.
having is increase in price.
Okay, let's not go there
Do you
today
understand?
because we are completely out
Then
of
down
time.
to this tariff of energy. I think that one is another kettle of rubbish. More so because of the very stupid reason they gave, that foreign exchange, that price index has increased over the years, and that because the price index has increased over the years, that they are going to increase. But they came back, I think, early this morning to say that, hey, well, we discovered that NEC has not given any approval to it. We are no longer increasing.
Okay, what's true?
Yeah, I think these guys have not started well. I mean, it's not a
Okay.
coordinated policy frameworks.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you. I must thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Barrister Charles Ogugua.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
very much because I don't know if it is not this kind of well, how do I even call it, encouragement that we get, some of us would have slapped into depression.
It's
At least
unfortunate.
there is hope. Okay, there is hope. There are things to do, and we'll get out of this quagmire, at least to be able to sustain the democracy we have. Because very soon, some people will tell us that they even prefer what do you call it, military regime to what we are facing now.
Yes.
But let's see how it goes in the coming days. Thank you, Barrister Charles Ogugua, a legal practitioner, for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much. And
Okay.
thank you for having me.
All
Good
right.
morning, my people. And may we have a beautiful day today.
Thank you very much. Thank you, the camera guys. Thank you, the producers, Sifi and Chichi, and then the ops directors and everybody in the house. Thank you for making it happen this morning. My name is Sijoma. God keeping us. We'll continue tomorrow. God bless you.